Hey, it's Craig Ballantyne, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Jan Alunga.
This is episode 166, and today we're gonna get the formula for the perfect day. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
All right. How are you doing? Are you having a good day? Are you having a good week? And there is a reason why I ask you those two questions, because in this episode, we're going to focus on your day, and not just any day really, but your perfect day. In this episode, we're going to get some advice and we're going to hear about the formula for the perfect day so that you can always make the most of your day from start to finish. As we know, being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you're up and the minute after you're down for whatever reason, your personal life, your professional life, whatever. Regardless of where you are right now, I want you to take a deep breath and get excited because this episode is gonna rock your world. We are joined by Craig Ballantyne. He's the editor of earlytorise.com, is the founder of the Turbulence Training, and is also the author of The Perfect Day Formula. The show notes for today's conversation are over at yannilunga.com/episode 166. All right, here's the interview with Craig Ballantyne from earlytorise.com. Hey everybody, in this episode, we touch into something that really is for you. Regardless of where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, regardless of how old you are, where you are in the world, what industry you're in really, because we talk about something that is so critical, and you're going to understand more about that in a second. And we are joined by the editor of earlytorise.com, a digital publication that is all about helping you live a richer and fuller life, grow your income, and really become more productive. He's also the founder of the Turbulence Training, is a contributor for Men's Health magazine, and is an author. His new book, The Perfect Day Formula, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life, helps you take the necessary steps for feeling unstoppable and take control of your days so that everything just clicks. I'm so pumped to welcome on the show Craig Ballantyne. Craig, how's it going?
Really, really great. Thanks so much, Jan.
It's exciting to be talking with people like you. And we were having a chat here before starting recording, and I told you are from one of my favorite countries, one of my favorite areas, which is Canada, Ontario, the Toronto area. I'm pumped. I know that you are passionate about what you do. You were telling me that you travel, you're passionate about traveling, and you've written a book. I said it, The Perfect Day Formula. And I think the first question I have to ask you, Craig, is to tell everybody a little bit more about the book. Because, I said it, the title, the second part of the title, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life. I think there is one thing to maybe write about lifestyle, about productivity here and there, but to write an actual book on the topic is a completely different story. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what the Perfect Day Formula is about and why you decided to write the book?
Yeah, so it's actually when you were in Toronto in 2007, I was starting to write my book because I was starting to get all these ideas and, I was starting to need the ideas to put in place my perfect day because I had just gone from being a full-time personal trainer to being a full-time internet entrepreneur because my online fitness programs were taking off in the world and people were buying them from countries all around the globe. And so I was able to not be a personal trainer anymore. But when you go from having that structure in your day to having absolute freedom, which a lot of people listening to this call probably have experienced as they become successful entrepreneurs in control of their schedule, you realize that, if I don't make the right decisions, I can actually end up wasting my day and not even getting as much done when I was doing this part-time. And so I realized I need to get things in place. And that's what started my journey, was right around 2007. And then over the last almost 10 years, I've studied so much on personal productivity and time management and success and health and sleep and all of these things that create a really successful entrepreneur. I've coached many people to make millions of dollars, and I've just put in place all of these systems for my own business. And then I said, I have to share this with the world. And I ended up writing the book and finished it last year in the middle of August in one of my favorite cities, which is Istanbul in Turkey. So that's where I put my final edits in on the book.
I love it. And I mean, I said it, Craig, at the beginning, that you like traveling, and there you have it. You started it when you were back in Canada, so 2007, and you added the final period there in Istanbul, Turkey. And you know, it's great you talk about this, because not only it's something that you implemented yourself and then you started to teach to some of your clients, but you really decided to share it with the world. So I think the next question I have for you, and I really have to ask you this, is obviously everybody is different. Everybody has different priorities, different goals, different habits. But if you look at maybe some of your past clients or current clients or people you are familiar with, what would you say are some of the, let's call them mistakes, entrepreneurs, marketers, authors make that are kind of preventing them from really having the perfect day?
Yeah, so the number one thing is that we all know in the afternoons and late in the morning, we're going to get crazy busy with all these people coming and asking us for favors and our time. And so we really need to take control of the morning. But too many people get up and they jump into their email, or they get off track right away doing something that isn't really important. But the number one thing that somebody can do is to focus on their number one priority in life, their number one opportunity, and take advantage of the time in the morning before people are calling them and emailing them and, you know, trying to take their time and really get something done that moves them ahead towards their big goals and dreams, towards their big projects, whether it's writing a sales presentation or practicing a sales presentation, or writing a new product or creating a new product or doing some sort of marketing that brings in new customers, because that's the number one thing that entrepreneurs need to be doing. And so most people let that time slip away in the morning when they can be making progress on that. So at the end of the day, they feel like they've done so much stuff. But at 5 o'clock, they say, oh, I've been so busy today, but I haven't actually accomplished anything that really matters. And so the biggest mistake is not taking advantage of that time first thing in the morning when you get started to really work on your number one priority.
Okay, so to really do meaningful things that help the needle move. But Craig, what if there is somebody here with you and I who is like, well, Craig, Jan, what you just told us sounds very interesting, but I'm so not a morning person. What do you have any advice, anything they can do to kind of maybe change the mindset or changing the approach, for example, or changing the way they go to sleep or they see their morning? I know that you have what you call the 10-3-2-1-0 good night formula, and you also have a PDF that talks about that. So I'll make sure to include the link to that, as well as everything else we touch on in the show notes. But yeah, it's kind of a two-folded question. So if somebody is not a morning person, what can they do to kind of follow the tips you just shared with us, Craig?
Well, there's actually so many ways to answer this. So I'll give you 3 different answers here, Jan. First of all, I'll say that there is 20% of the population that is chronologically a night owl. And I'm not going to fight that. I will accept it. One of my best friends who has a 9-figure supplement company, and I've stayed at his house many times while he's been working, is a night owl. And he gets so much done between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. But there's not a lot of people like him who can have the discipline to work at that time. Right. And so if you're going to take that approach, you have to be as focused on your night owl time as the morning people are on working on their number one priority first thing in the morning. So first of all, there is that option, but you have to take it very seriously, and you can't be end up, watching Netflix and HBO TV shows from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. and then, saying again, oh, I didn't get anything done. So you have to be disciplined either way. Now, the second thing is you don't have to get up really early in the morning. The great thing is, as an entrepreneur, many of us can control our schedules. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to take your first hour of the day, whatever time of day that is, very seriously and work on your number one priority. Because again, if you let that be delayed and try and do it in the afternoon, all these people are going to be phoning you and trying to get you to do their work, to take care of their emergencies, even though they are not your emergencies and they don't really matter to you. But if you have employees, everything that they think is a big deal, which isn't a big deal in the long run, is going to land on your plate, and you're going to have to deal with them, whether it's fighting between, people that work for you, or whether it's something that came in at the last minute, a deadline or something. It's just so much harder in the afternoon. So whatever time of day you do start, even if you're not a 6 a.m. person, if you're a 9 a.m. person or 11 a.m. person, get something done, because humans need to see progress in their lives. And when we don't see progress, we lose our motivation. So you always have to be moving ahead. And then finally, Jan, about your question about the 10-3-2-1-0 formula, it's been an extraordinary viral component to my book. It's been in the UK newspapers. It's been in Australian newspapers. It was even on Australian TV. I don't know if it's cracked. I don't know if it's cracked Finland yet, but it has been. It has been featured in all of these things around the world, and it's really, really gone viral. Actually, I have been on Russian TV, Jan.
Okay.
Yeah, so a woman from Moscow contacted me, and I gave her a little Skype video, and then they translated it for a Russian television show. And it's just so popular and so easy to share because it is that formula. And so for people, this is just a side tip, for people that are entrepreneurs in the information marketing world like myself, or writing a book, you need to have some easy to remember formulas that people can share that are also controversial, that allow people to disagree with you. Because some of the articles in those newspapers are all about the excuses that people have for not using my system. So they'll mention my system and then say, oh, but here's why I can't follow it.
Right.
The honest truth is those people are not really super successful people, and they probably have a lot of stress and guilt in their days from not getting a lot done because they didn't follow the formula. And mind if I share the exact formula?
No, absolutely not, Craig, please. Okay,
so the formula starts with 10 hours before you go to sleep, you stop all caffeine. So if you're going to go to sleep at 10 p.m., you're not going to have any coffee or energy drinks or any caffeine after noon. Mm-hmm. And then 3 hours before you go to bed, you need to stop drinking alcohol or having heavy meals of sugar and fat and spices, because all of those will interfere with your sleep cycles. Now, I know that having a drink makes you relax, and you might feel that it allows you to fall asleep better, but it literally interferes with the sleep cycles that you have. So even if you fall asleep easier, you probably feel like in the morning you wake up groggy and you think, oh, I slept 7.5 or 8 hours last night. Why do I feel tired? Mm-hmm. And it's because of the alcohol that you had too close to bed. So that's it. 3 hours before bed, you'll have to stop drinking alcohol. Now, this is really easy to follow during the week. On the weekends, you can have a little bit of discretion, but try and follow it during the week so that you have a really great, amazing workday. Now, the 2 hours is to stop all work 2 hours before bed so that you're not stressed out and you're not letting crazy thoughts run through your mind as you try and fall asleep. 1 hour before bed, you're going to stop using all electronics, because the blue light emitted from screens, iPhones, laptops, that type of stuff, Kindles, e-readers, those things actually make us more alert and keep us up. So if you're tossing and turning and you just read a whole bunch of emails on your iPhone, that's the reason. Or you just watched some Netflix and HBO on your iPad. It's because the screen actually makes you more alert and it makes it hard to go to sleep. And then the 0 is how many times you should hit the snooze button in the morning. So set your alarm for the time that you're going to get up, and then don't hit the snooze button. Turn the alarm off, get out of bed, because if you hit that snooze button, you go back into a sleep cycle. And again, you actually wake up groggier, even though you think you got a little extra sleep. So you need to avoid that. And I follow those rules, and I get great night's sleep, and I have tons of energy when I get up, and I'm follow my rules for falling asleep. So even though I go to bed relatively early, I'm able to fall asleep really quickly because I follow the rules. And that's allowed me to get so much done, write the book, travel the world, and do all of these great things.
Man, Craig, thank you for sharing the formula with all of us. And I said it on earlytorise.com. You also have the PDF, so I'll make sure to link to that as well. So in case you're here with Craig and I, and maybe you were taking notes as he was explaining the 10-3-2-1-0 good night formula, you can also download the PDF he and his team have created. And it's interesting, Craig, you mentioned the snooze button, so the zero. And he reminded me when there was Hal Elrod, the author of The Miracle Morning here on the podcast, he also touched on the kind of the importance of the snooze, or the impact the snooze can have on the way we start our day. And I remember his advice was to, if possible, to locate the phone somewhere else than our night table, so that when the alarm rings, we literally have to move. So we maybe have to stand up, take a couple of steps, and then actually put it off, so that we're gonna we're gonna feel more aware and awake by the time we reach our phone, rather than just hit the snooze button, turn it to the other side, and keep sleeping. But I like it. And so in your good night formula, you touched on different things. So you touched, first of all, on the consumption of caffeine and these kind of things. You talked about the food and drinking. You talked about the idea of stopping with the kind of work mindset and work worries and thoughts before going to sleep, and then about the screens. And people who are here with you and I, who have been tuning in the past, they may remember this point about the screens. We touched on it with Tom Rath in the past on the podcast. But thank you really, Craig, for sharing this with us. I'm loving this conversation. And I want to ask you about still obviously about the morning, things we can do to create the perfect day, because you talked about the importance of really doing that one thing that helps us move the needle. And you said it doesn't really matter if we wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning or at 9 a.m. But in terms of the planning, so the good night formula you share with us really helps us make sure that we get a good night's sleep. But in terms of the preparation, so for example, let's say in your case, if you have a project coming up, or maybe you're writing another book or something like that, how do you kind of plan? Is it something that you plan, before the day before, you're going to say, okay, tomorrow morning, this is the one task I'm going to do, or how do you go about it?
Absolutely. So what you're going to do is, almost every entrepreneur should have a fairly simple daily template. And this is a general template that you're going to be able to follow most days that you're working on your business. So for me, for example, I wake up and the first 90 minutes is dedicated to writing. Then I do some personal stuff like meditation. I walk the dog. I have breakfast. Then I go back and do more work. Then I have an exercise and lunch break. And then I have, these types of interviews are generally in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And so I know exactly what my general template for the day should be based on my best energy, what I call magic time, which is when I'm most productive. And I know that in the afternoon that I'm better on doing these interviews. And so everyone should have something like that. And then the night before, you take a look at your template, and then you just plug in the specifics. Like in the afternoon, I know I'm going to have this call, and this call with these people, with this deadline, with this, objective is going to be for each one of these calls, and that's what we're going to accomplish. And in the morning, I know that my first 90 minutes is going to be spent writing. Maybe it's this chapter in a book, or maybe it's this article for my website, or maybe it's this for a magazine, or maybe it's this email sequence for my readers. And then I know that after breakfast, I'm going to be doing more writing on a different topic for a newsletter, or for another book chapter. And then I'm going to have the afternoon and those phone calls that I mentioned before. So everyone should have that general template first, that they have just a broad knowledge about their business. And of course, there's going to be days when you don't follow it because you're traveling or you're doing meetings or something like that. But you should have a general template for Monday through Friday in your business. And then the night before, you plug things in specifically into those general blocks of time so that you know exactly what you're going to do so that you don't waste a minute, whether it's surfing the internet or whether it's getting into arguments with people or taking phone calls that are not worth your time because you're so dialed in with your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said, Craig, makes perfect sense, especially this last point of so that we know exactly what we're gonna do, and if we want to have half an hour to just wander off and surf the internet or check social media, whatever, if we put it in our schedule, we know that those are gonna be the 30 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour that is gonna be dedicated to do that. But then in the other blocks of times, we're gonna be focusing on what we plan to do in the first place. And do you happen to use any particular tool or app or something like that to maybe kind of create your calendar and lay out the foundation for your perfect day?
That's actually really funny because I've never used a single app in my entire life. But the truth is, you don't necessarily need it. I just use a simple Word document and sometimes a spreadsheet. I guess I use a Google Calendar to do some stuff, but not very much stuff. I really just use a simple list, whether it could be on paper or a Word document. That's what works for me. Now, the most important thing is if somebody wants to use an app, by all means, use one. But don't turn planning into a perverse form of procrastination where you spend all day planning and, whiteboarding things and trying all these apps and stuff. Let's just get right to the point, find one that works, be happy with it, and then, get to the stuff that really matters, which is the actual critical work that is going to move your business forward.
Yeah, I mean, I love, Craig, the fact that you talked about not using any particular app. And sure, there are apps that they can help us kind of fasten the planning process and these kind of things. But then you said it is important not to fall into the trap of spending more time planning than actually executing what we had planned. And this, I said it, Craig, I'm really enjoying this conversation. And I want to point out a couple of links in the show notes. So in the show notes, there is the link to earlytorise.com. There is the link to your new book, The Perfect Day Formula, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life. And you also find the link to Craig's Twitter at Craig Ballantyne. So if maybe you have some questions, or you simply want to say thank you, you want to connect with Craig, you want to give him a virtual high five, regardless of what you want to do, you can do that on Twitter. And Craig, I have to ask you for some more golden nuggets, because I mean, you told us first of all about your book, why you decided to write it, the kind of international component behind it with Istanbul, and then you touched on the mistakes or things many entrepreneurs make that are really preventing them from creating the perfect day. You shared the 10-3-2-1-0 good night formula. And I want to ask you if you have any more insights, any more advice or stories on some of the things we can do to really own the day rather than having the day owning you and take full control of our life 360 degrees.
Well, I think the most important thing, Jan, is what I mentioned earlier, which is get up, know your number one priority, and spend some time on it so that you have that victory that gives you momentum for the rest of the day. And then have that plan to go in and really stick to it over the rest of the day. One thing that most people don't ever think about is having an end time for their meetings or their phone calls. And so they'll book one of those things at 1 p.m. And then the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later and they only expected to be doing 30 minutes. And that can really eat up into your time. So when you book a meeting or a phone call, also book an end time for the meeting or the phone call. Let everybody know going into it that the time is, the meeting or the phone call is going to end at this time. And then that way everybody comes prepared, and that way everybody gets the objective out of it and moves ahead. And then you continue on with that great communication and move your business forward. So really it comes down to planning and preparation, great communication, and simply taking action, massive action on the plans that you've put together.
Man, I love it. And again, I want to remind you, if you're here with Craig and I, you're enjoying the conversation. Maybe is something you've been struggling with. You have been struggling getting things done in the morning. The quality of your sleep hasn't been as good as you've hoped it would be. You have planned something, but somehow you feel stuck. You feel you would like to take the next step and really rock every single day you have. Make sure to grab a copy of Craig Ballantyne's new book, The Perfect Day Formula: How to Own the Day and Control Your Life. And Craig, to wrap it up, the last question I want to ask you is, if somebody has questions, they want to connect with you and so forth, is Twitter the best way to do that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I drop in there a couple times a day just to, hear from people around the world. It's funny. That's where a lot of the writers from these newspapers and from these TV shows contact me through there. It's the easiest way to find me. So twitter.com/Craig Ballantyne, and you can drop me a note and I'm happy to get back to you.
Awesome. So there is really no excuse not to connect with Craig, not to grab a copy of his book, and really not to get started and take massive action. Craig, thank you so much for being here on the show, for telling us more about your story and sharing insights from the Perfect Day Formula. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jan. It was just like a good conversation that flew by.
And we are back. Craig, thank you so much for your advice and for telling us more about your book, The Perfect Day Formula, for sharing the 10-3-2-1-0 good night formula and all the golden nuggets you shared with all of us. And you heard it, the show notes today are over at janilunga.com/episode 166. And there you also find the links to the 2 past episodes of the podcast I mentioned, the one with Hal Elrod and the one with Tom Rath. And to wrap up today's episode, I want to ask you a question. Is there something in particular that you do that has been working out very well, that has been really helping you, feeling great, getting the most out of your day? If so, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Whether it's Twitter or Instagram, on both platforms, you find me at the Jan Ilunga. So Instagram or Twitter, let me know what is working for you and what do you do to get the most out of your day and to really make every day the perfect day. Okay, this is it for today. Again, thank you. And I'll be back with you next week. Take care and have yourself a perfect day.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.